More than 200 nurses from various hospitals throughout the Hunter attended the meeting. The association's General Secretary, Jenny Haynes, condemned the State Health Minister, Ron Mulock, for announcing on Tuesday that the nurses had accepted the government's 38-hour week package. She said the government's terms were still unacceptable to the association and described Mr Mulock's actions as a curious way of carrying out negotiations. Nurses at the meeting voted overwhelmingly to continue fighting for a 38-hour week on their own terms. A majority of branches throughout the state have already endorsed industrial action.
The industrial action we will be taking from the 13th of May, if there's no agreement between the department and the association by the 10th of May, starts with bans on non-nursing duties next Monday, the 13th of May. Then we follow up with further bans in the following week and stoppages in the week beginning the 27th of May.
With the stoppage, what effect do you think a walkout by nurses will have?
I think that nurses will be very effective in their walkout. Certainly the association has always taken a responsible position in relation to stoppages, in that we have provided skeleton staffing so that patient care is maintained. It is simply that less nurses are around.
In the Hunter, nurses have endorsed all three stages of industrial action at Singleton, Maitland, the Martyr and Morisset hospitals. At Stockton Hospital, nurses have rejected the third stage, the indefinite withdrawal of staff. The Royal Newcastle Hospital remains one of the few in the state where nurses say they will not be taking any industrial action. However, they will be staging a protest march on the 17th of this month.
It's the Assessment and Training Centre at Merriweather. Centre administrators, staff and invited guests attended the brief opening ceremony about an hour ago. The honour of opening the centre was that of Deputy Premier and Minister for Health, Ron Mulock. He spoke highly of the new ATC, which works closely with Lingard Hospital and concentrates on the rehabilitation services, occupational health and prevention programs. The Minister said Newcastle was most fortunate in having such an advanced centre as the Assessment and Training Centre, offering so much to the public.
At Rothby Estate,
and Springfield 2 have now started.
Dunhill Classic
This is the fourth team.
Arranged by the Hunt
Riding
Club,
number 10 is Jeff Broom.
described as a
Number
combination
11,
of
Robert
jumping and
Langton.
venting against the slough. The course had 21 obstacles varying from low fences to water jumps and moving through old existing buildings such as a disused abattoir. It may look easy, but it's far from that, and tragedy can strike even at the last fence. It gave one, though, a feeling of well-being watching rider and horse in such beautiful natural surroundings.
Very good run.
That feeling continued at the Maitland Showground, where the 10th annual Hunter Valley All-Arabian Horse Show was in progress. And aren't they really one of the very best of breed? They are majestic and colourful too, when horse and rider get dressed up in traditional costumes. The champion saddle horse is judged
Horse
in the
from
best
ring
pure
2.
breed and the best
Competition very soon.
The
Sign Supreme Saddle Horse.
looked as good to the experienced eye as he obviously did to the casual.
Arabian horse is all about.
For the through pass there to Adamson, but the interception was good by Bateman.
There's an overlap here. Virginia will take the drive.
Ian Rabillia to bring the ball back. Discussing tactics with Bateman as he jogs by. Jimmy Bateman's certainly been an outstanding player with the Falcons, not only this year, but last year when he was brought up from the Hunters, when he previously played a season. Davies copped a big bump there.
I suppose doing the unexpected, and he's taken 4 of his players. He's left Ollie Johnson in there as the only player that started on the first 5, but he'll be expecting his players to apply a little bit more defensive pressure, I'd imagine.
Against the Coburg Giants.
And a shot, too short though. Will pick
carrying bricks guaranteed to forever withstand the salt sea air, which sooner or later seems to damage most known brick types. A small gathering of local media met the load and representatives of Bathurst Bricks and Zakuba Bricks, the two companies that manufacture these exposure-grade bricks, as they're called. It's part of a program to create awareness about the existence of these bricks to coastal builders, involving the Newcastle Building Information Centre. According to the brick makers, these bricks represent plain common sense.
Mr Hector, it's rather unusual promotion, and you say these bricks have been around for some time. Why pick on now to fly into Newcastle Harbour in such an unusual way to promote them?
Well, the Hornsby Building Information Centre and the Building Information Centre over here, the General Manager there, Mr Frank Featherstone, decided that he was going to promote bricks along the coastal areas that do pass the durability test that's just come into vogue, so that people building will know in the future that the bricks that they can get will actually pass the salt test that's just been devised.
You said they've been around for a long time. What do you mean they've just come into vogue?
Well, it's only just recently that people realise that some bricks indeed are not suitable for areas along the seafront.
The new turboprop airliner, which was put through its paces at Williamtown Airport, the flight plane was achieving speed around 300 knots. It also incorporates the latest in propeller and engine technology.
Very sleek, very fast and very quiet. The passenger appeal is tremendous. Our ride up this morning from Sydney was only around 20 minutes, and it's a very nice aeroplane.
East Coast Airlines will be testing the Brasilia over the next 12 months. If it meets all requirements, the plane will then be used on flights from Sydney to Newcastle, Maitland and Bathurst.
To be able to...
When James Dibble retired in 1983 after 34 years of newsreading on radio and television, he may have been hoping to put his feet up for a while. But as he told the Business in London at the Capsules Club today, he was swept up in the promotion of a project called the Peer Support Foundation. The non-profit organisation found that today's teenagers have no sense of security, a lack of faith in the future, and low self-esteem. Training courses are held for Year 10 high school students in an attempt to solve these problems. Those students then teach the same emotional skills to younger students at their school. Mr. Dibble quoted one student as saying, "I'm important now, I have 6 people to look after." The project has been a significant success and is now operating in 100 schools throughout the state. Mr. Dibble told me that it's been a success because it fills an urgent need.
Well, I think it's certainly pointed up a great need, and when a need hasn't been fulfilled, then someone has failed somewhere along the line, haven't they? So that I think, yes, the way it's spread and the demand for it definitely indicates that it was something that was needed, it's vitally needed, and something that's fulfilling a need.
In the days when KB United were thrilling Newcastle spectators on the field, one of the driving forces behind the scenes was coach Ken Kaiser. Now, in a different role, Kaiser is still doing his bit for local soccer. As Director of Coaching for Northern New South Wales, Kaiser is this week carrying out his first major task in that job, a coaching clinic for 120 school-aged soccer players. His charges during the week-long clinic are between the ages of 6 and 16, and according to Kaiser, are among the keenest young players in the region. Kaiser's keeping good company this week, with current Newcastle Rosebud United coach Willie Gallagher and Rosebud stars Joe Pankowski, Bernard Kirby and Dean Malosky all helping to pass on their soccer skills. Kaiser's confident that clinics like this one will ensure that Newcastle continues to produce many great soccer players.
We believe that if we start at a young age group and give the correct coaching, then we've got a better chance of producing more players in the Sinkowski and the David Lowe mould.
At the National Soccer League level, soccer seems to be going through a bit of a lull in this region at the moment. How important to soccer in the region is this sort of clinic?
I think this is vitally important to our National League team. We've got to try and get as many of these young players through to aim at National League, and those that just don't make National League, then they can play for our State League clubs, and that'll improve the overall standard in the Newcastle area.
Newcastle's Carrington Slipways today took charge of their latest contract for the Urban Transit Authority, a $20 million hydrofoil to be fitted outside the slipways. The occasional hydrofoil in Sydney arrived in Newcastle aboard the freighter Fairload, and today workers began the arduous task of unloading the 75-ton vessel. The delicate operation began around 7 o'clock this morning, with workers slowly changing the balance of weight on the Fairload to allow for the shift caused by unloading. Sydney is the second big hydrofoil to be fitted out by the slipways for use on the long Hanley run on Sydney Harbour. More than 5 hours after the operation began, the Sydney was in the water. It will be towed upriver to the slipways at Tomago tomorrow morning on the high tide. Meanwhile, at the State Dockyard today, it was a different story with a smaller and slightly older vessel leaving Newcastle with the outfitting task complete. The former Tasmanian trawler, the NB Fana, has been refitted at the dockyard for a new life at the floating medical centre for Vanuatu. The vessel will assist an immunisation and healthcare project developed by the Save the Children Fund and the Australian Development Assistance Bureau. The Fana has spent the past 8 weeks at the dockyard undergoing a $120,000 facelift. Today, the Minister for Transport and Member for Shortland, Peter Morris, officially handed over the vessel to the Save the Children Fund and the Vanuatu government.
The awards were presented by the Mayor of Lake Macquarie, Alderman Jeff Pasterfield, on behalf of the Local Government Association. The first award was presented to Alderman Al Pickering's widow. Alderman Pickering served on the Lake Macquarie Council for 16 years and King County on the Shortland County Council for 10 years. Former Alderman John Kilpatrick was also honoured for his 9-year service to the Council, and so was Alderman Reg Lenigan, who has been an Alderman for 25 years.
What made me stand again every time was you're in something that hasn't been finished, hasn't been finalised, and you want to come back and see that it gets finalised. And of course, at the end of that term, there's something else not finalised, and you want to come back again. So.
And that's been the story for the last 25 years?
Yes. I've enjoyed it.
The 12-metre sloop, the Selina, was so close to safety and yet so far when she overturned at the entrance to Newcastle Harbour. The Selina left Sydney yesterday morning bound for New Zealand, but the southerly blew the boat further up the coast until the 3-man crew decided to make the shore. The distress call came at about 6:30 last night, and the police rescue squad used the Nobby's Lighthouse searchlight to try to locate the as well as the marine and rescue helicopter. It was this light that eventually located the 2 ship members of the crew who'd been swept around the Stockton breakwater. A life raft and flares were dropped from the chopper, and it took about an hour before the first man was washed ashore near Fort Wallace Army Base. Newcastle man Mark Roach helped pull him in from the boiling surf.
Yes, I was walking down the beach and one of the rescue men, they said that they were going down this way and there was someone in the water. So I raced down there and I seen a blue jacket on a person, so I seen a wave come and he come up, he looked like he was up, put his hand up looking for someone to grab him. So both I went in first and grabbed him, and then the rescue men come in as well, and we both
2-metre swells were whipped up by the 70-knot winds.
There's no way they could have taken the boat out here tonight, and there's no way that the helicopter could have gone down low enough to get them. All they could do was wait until they were washed up on the shore.
The second man was dumped on the shore by the huge surf, and paramedics worked on him on the sand before he was transferred to the Mater Hospital, suffering from hypothermia. The search for the third man, a German national, was abandoned at about 10 o'clock last night and will begin again this morning, but grave fears are held for his safety.
Nobby Signal Station first saw the light from the distressed yacht at 7:15 last night. A boat was perilously close to the rocks and water police were called in. Shouts were heard from the sea, and later the Westpac rescue helicopter saw 3 men in the water, but the conditions were too blustery for any rescue attempts to be made. Later, 2 men were washed up on Stockton Beach. The men had clung to pieces of debris and had been caught up in the huge surf. They were dragged from the water by rescue services and spent the night in the Mater Hospital recovering from hypothermia. This morning, the skipper of the yacht, David Brown from Britain, was back on Stockton Beach helping to look for his missing crewmate. The Westpac rescue helicopter, Polair and 4-wheel drive vehicles all searched the beachfront for clues.
The wreck of the 35-foot sloop, the Solano, was found here about 50 metres behind me this morning on a notorious bit of rock called Big Ben's Reef. It's not the first victim that Big Ben's claimed over the years. Already, debris from the wreck is being washed up here on the breakwater, and that's expected to continue for most of today.
Mr McMillan from Monash University in Melbourne begins his national tour in Newcastle and will address a number of aspects associated with the study of psychology. Although many people feel that psychology is based on research into health-related areas, he says that there are many other factors involved.
There's education, for example, there's management consulting, there's the whole area of vocational guidance. But, for example, I noticed coming into Newcastle Airport today that you have a guidance system for visually guiding aircraft down onto the landing strip, which was developed substantially by psychologists.
In your opinion, over the past 10 years, what would be one of the greatest major developments in psychological studies?
Oh, that's very difficult to say. There's been an enormous amount of interest amongst academic psychologists anyway in the way in which the brain functions and the implications that that has for the way in which we understand sentences, for example. Now that's got a practical application in areas like reading and the like, and that whole area of what's called cognitive psychology, particularly in relation to brain function, is probably the most exciting thing that's happened.
Weeks ago, this was the scene at Newcastle CAE. Hundreds of students meeting to oppose the suggested reintroduction of tertiary fees. Walsh's proposal would cost each student $950 a year, a cost the students say would decimate their ranks. The issue reared its head again last week, with Prime Minister Hawke coming out in support of fees.
The students were horrified when they first heard this. Unfortunately, it came at a time when a lot of students were on holidays. It was very hard to get action together. But now that we're back on campus, we've already started action. It was less than 6 weeks ago that the debate originally came up, and it went before caucus and it was defeated. And it seems that the powers that be weren't happy with that decision, and so they're trying again to overturn it.
Following a meeting of the Students' Association last night, it has sent a telegram of protest to Prime Minister Hawke, Senator Walsh and others. The telegram reminds them of student opposition and concludes, "We haven't changed our minds. We hope caucus won't either." Representatives of college students and staff will meet with council. The message from the college is clear. Any attempt to introduce any form of tertiary fees would be met with a loud and angry protest.
However, the students may not have to worry. Today, Prime Minister Hawke was reported backing away from the idea, and Senator Walsh does not appear to have enough support in caucus to get the idea through.
In a deferred match under lights at Wollongong Showdown, Newcastle may return the corner in this year's NSL competition, making way for a more encouraging run home. Going into the match, Wollongong was sitting humbly at the bottom of the NSL table on just 5 points after 10 games. Newcastle just 3 points ahead, lying in 10th position in the 12-team Northern Division. It was a scoreless first half, but second-half goals by Rosebuds, Neil Owens and Derek Todd were enough to defeat our sister Steel City 2-1. The win shot Newcastle to 6th place on the competition table, providing Canberra with something to think about. There it is. Croatia still on top with 16, but moving down to Canberra sitting on 12 points, and Newcastle now just 2 in arrears. Things are looking up for Rosebud supporters.